Back in December of 2023, I made a video covering my dive watch collection. I was incredibly proud of that collection, and after watching the video back, I almost convinced myself I would never replace any of them. Guess what? I've sold 4 of them, put the Batavi Cosmo Elite with the GMT watches, and bought no less than 5 other dive watches. Believe me, all the watches I sold were excellent, but some new ones came along that I just couldn't resist. When I say new, I actually mean used, or nearly new of course. Now the top drawer of my watch box is all divers, which amounts to a total of 10, so I make sure if I buy one, I sell one. So what got sold? Firstly, my Christopher Ward Sapphire, which indeed was a fantastic watch. That said, although I enjoyed it, we just fell out of love, and the Sapphire asked me if it could go and live somewhere else. Then there was the Reverie Diver. I actually said on the last video this was a watch I'd almost decided to sell a few times, but I changed my mind. Well, I suppose the seed was then sown, so it eventually went. Then the San Martin Vintage Diver went. For the money, this was a great watch with great dimensions. In fact, it won my Bezel Wars video, the bezel was so good. The only reason I sold it was because I bought another watch with a burnt orange dial I liked even more. I then decided to sell my Helm Komodo to make way for a watch I couldn't say no to, but we'll get to that later. This was a fine tall diver that some say are over-engineered. In fact, it was the only ISO rated diver in my collection. To be honest though, I always struggle with that 15mm depth. As a matter of fact, these are the watches I still own from the last video. The J&G Exciton 2, a watch created by Gary and James from the YouTube channel I Like Watches. The Christopher Ward Super Compressor, which now lives on this leather strap rather than the riveted bracelet previously featured. I think this has got one of the prettiest styles ever put on any dive watch. The Father's Horizon, which I'd only just bought before my last dive watch video. I absolutely adore this watch and still can't believe the price I landed it for. The Perronere Rogue X. This never fails to get compliments, especially because of the unique bezel with the stainless steel insert and ceramics around. And finally, the Martin Hudson. This watch has got a great set of dimensions, it's very comfortable and it almost wears like a dress watch. Now I'd like to say all these watches are here to stay, but I know what I'm like. So in no particular order, what have I bought? And don't forget, I've done 4 reviews on all these watches. First up is probably my favourite diver at present, albeit this can change almost on a daily basis. This is the Coast Pacific Explorer. I believe this was the one and only watch this stainless based microband ever made. It's got this fantastic bronze brush style, sandwich Explorer indices that are very well loomed, stunning gilt hands, and this bronze bezel with a great action. Now the flat Jubilee bracelet is excellent, and the icing on the cake is a Sleater SW200 inside it. I bought this totally unused one for £387, albeit the original selling price was still pretty reasonable. The last time I looked on their Facebook page, they still had a few left, although their website has now been shut down. This is my Axios flagship in the only colour I actually wanted. Axios are sister brand to Zelos, and in my opinion the quality of their watches are easily as good. I particularly like the grey sapphire bezel insert, which I believe complements the teal dial so well. Now because of the deep bezel, this watch actually wears smaller than the 40mm diameter indicates, which I think is a good thing. This is the second Axios in my collection, and I've owned a few others in the past as well. If you ever get the chance to pick one of these up, I would strongly recommend you don't give it a second thought. The reason as mentioned earlier for selling my vintage San Martin diver is because I managed to land this Kokoda Sea Hunter with this stunning burnt orange dial. I picked this unworn one up for a little more than half the price of a new one, which incidentally is £499, albeit I think that's quite expensive for what it is. Now Kokoda are a British company that are more famed for selling watch straps, but in recent years they've sold their own brand watches, as well as a few other micro brands. Now this is actually the second edition, and believe it or not, I used to own the first edition with a black dial and a green bezel. At that time it was called the GO2. This may just look like a bit of a fun tool watch, but in actual fact it's really well put together. It's the Van Banner Parking Master 2 and it comes from Canada. It's got a Miyota 9039 movement inside it, a brilliant loom, fantastic bezel, and the bracelet and clasp are excellent. The only thing I'm not that keen on is the shape and finishing of the case, but I suppose you can't have everything. Now this has been given the task of being my holiday watch. Finally, this is my most recent purchase and one I'm quite proud of owning. It's the Canopy Wake 1. Canopy are a Texas-based micro brand, and this is their one and only watch. I believe they made a few mistakes along the way though, including having too many of these made. But that's fallen in the favour of anybody who wants a really well-spec'd watch at a great price. You can currently pick one of these up in either stainless steel or DLC coated stainless steel for just $599 or £480. That may sound like a lot, but it was originally meant to sell for $1,000. Now it's got a fantastic bezel with a forged carbon insert. The bracelet on the fly clasp are superb, and its jewel in the crown is a regulated Celita SW200-1 movement. Unfortunately, the loom on this watch is rubbish though, and I wish they brushed the sides instead of polishing them. But other than that, I really feel you've got a quality watch on your wrist when you're wearing this. Now I forgot to mention, I picked this nearly new one up for less than £280. So that brings me to the end of this update, and I hope I haven't bored you too much. That said, if I had, I suppose you would have already turned me off by now. Anyway, on the off chance you have enjoyed it, please click on the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave your comments below and enjoy the rest of your day.